In a nutshell, describe the film for us.
I think it's an intense journey into the impulses that kind of haunt us all, and what would happen if we were ever put in a position where those impulses kind of became the better part of us, and they were the defining factor in life and death. It's a great it's an old school classic sci-fi romp, and it's fairly intense, but that's kind of the way we wanted it.
It's set in the future at the turn of the 23rd century. And It's about an away team who gets sent to a very remote outpost where they need to deal with a situation about some sort of alien virus infection that has claimed the station staff, and the soldiers have to deal with that. How does that sound? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is, yeah. Sorry, that's probably the more precise version, yeah.
That's okay. Now, mate, you mentioned old school science fiction. I got to say, having seen the film, you really do wear your influences on your sleeve. Aliens, there's a bit of Terminator in there. There's a lot of James Cameron. I get the feeling that this is not something that you will apologise for.
Not at all. I mean, the thing that I think with a lot of cinema right now, it's very, very disposable. And I think for me, we actually looked at the films of, it was actually anything that was from 79 to 82. That was Aliens, The Thing, Apocalypse Now, Blade Runner, Empire Strikes Back, Wrath of Khan. We looked at that era of cinema and what they used to shoot on, the techniques that they kind of crafted. And if they didn't do it back then, we didn't do it in this film. So a lot of the camera moves and a lot of the sort of the lighting and the processing and things that happen in current cinema, we tried to manufacture a look and a feel that felt like it came from that sort of late 70s, early 80s era, which to me was the defining era of science fiction worldwide. It changed everything. You know, those films like the seminal, that sort of period is like a seminal period in cinema for genre films. And I think with this film, it was to try and give a story that was a bit more unique. I think people from the trailer, they kind of get a vibe on what the film's going to be, and we tried our best to kind of subvert those expectations as you went. So set up something familiar and then keep changing it as it went. And, you know, I think from the sort of second half of the film, we tried to push the train off the tracks as far as we could go.
Yeah, I'm going to have to pay that out because you do end up with a very good climax in this film.
Yeah, and the idea was to get the cynics in and get this like audience that just feels like we've seen it all, and start it off, and from the trailer as well, get them thinking, oh, okay, I've seen this, I get it. It's an alien monster, it's a robot thing, or like I've seen it, I get it. And then as the film went on, the way the characters interact with each other and the way the actors deal with the situation, it becomes more unique and a bit more risky, which is kind of what I really like. I mean, the second half of the film for me was kind of the gloves off, and I love the way it kind of keeps just growing and growing. And the end, the final 30 minutes when we have, you know, and any screening I've attended, the final 30 minutes of that film are quite potent because, you know, people have wondered the whole way, where is this heading? And then we kind of pay it off with quite a strong message. For
the record, you are a young filmmaker of the digital era. In fact, this film is being released on the brand spanking new digital platform release model. So you are very much embracing digital technology and digital culture as far as that's concerned. However, when it comes to being a filmmaker, you, like many other young filmmakers of your generation, have this incredible respect for old school filmmaking aesthetics. Why?
Because I feel like, I think a lot of us do, I feel like I was born in the wrong era. You know, film is not heading into a golden age. You know, film, it's like music, you know, like there was that period of the 70s, 80s, and then the 90s was like everyone got crazy, and then it all started changing. And it's funny because I spent many years in Hollywood, and I kind of felt when I came back here to shoot this, I could kind of see over there that everyone was starting to look at the Colosseum, which was, you know, Avengers and Avatar and these fantastic big tentpole movies. And then you looked behind you to the city, which used to be the Die Hards and the Predators and those kind of mid-tier budget films. And the whole city was on fire. Nobody was making those films anymore. that piracy had crippled a lot of the marketplaces. Netflix and things like that had changed the game forever. And the audience, and it's fine because the audience voted that's what they wanted. But what it did was it knocked out that whole mid-tier of films. So you're either an under $5 million Blumhouse kind of indie film, like horror sort of genre film, or you're a $100 million tentpole. And I think it's the same with filmmaking. It forced you then to, film became very expensive, and we all embrace this digital technology. It's the same as what we're doing right now with this digital release. It's so new to me. I'm used to, you have to go to the cinema, you have to pay the money to sit there and have this big experience. We spent 4 months mixing the movie, and yet 95% of people are going to watch it in stereo on their home speakers. So it's a bizarre time that we're in right now. So I think why we go back to that era is anything I can do to get back to that era of cinema I grew up with and I love. I don't think we got any better. When you talk about a film like Blade Runner, everyone measures that as like the seminal type of sort of dystopian science fiction film, and it's kind of sad that we never did any better than that. We haven't made a film that topped Blade Runner. We haven't had a sci-fi epic that topped Star Wars. I think new cinema has these exciting things, but with the soul of it seems to be missing for me.
Can you just quickly explain to us what the benefits are of a digital release? Because you're not releasing in cinemas, are you?
Yeah, that actually, to be honest, was to combat piracy. Because
sure.
we're one of the worst countries for it, and they have a terribly archaic system here where if you come out in the cinemas, I understand the need to protect that window, but if we were a theatrical release, as we were planned for here, we would have to wait 90 days before we could release it on VOD or physical Blu-ray. And the problem that happens there is there's 90 days where you've got our core audience sitting around saying, well, I didn't see it at the cinema, but I have to wait 3 months to watch the film. But right now it's available on pirate networks, 5 seconds after it's out there. So they're going to pirate it, and that's happened to Wormwood. Friends of ours did a film called Wormwood, and because of what happened to them, we had to cancel all our cinema screens and just go day and date with America. So America, the whole world gets this film theatrically except Australia because of piracy.
So it is being released in theatres in the United States and elsewhere, but not Australia?
Yeah, so Japan, UK, Spain, everywhere gets a theatrical run except us because our window, because we have that rule where if we do put it in cinemas here, we're going to have a great opening week here at the cinemas, and then for the next 3 months, this film will just have probably millions of downloads illegally.
Okay.
And with a film like this, where the cast and crew reinvested a lot of money back into the film to get it made, they need to pay their rent.
Mate, I am going to come back to the film in just a second, but just to make this absolutely clear, so Wormwood was, and what happened to that film was kind of the canary in the coal mine for you. You saw what happened there and said, we can't have that happen to my film.
No, and Josh Lawson's Little Death, the Kia's Wormwood, there was a whole bunch of films that went before us that were having amazing reviews, and we sort of had that cult following, but people weren't paying to watch them. And these are not $100 million films. These are filmmakers that are friends of mine that literally do second jobs, some of these guys, to stay in the game. And it's like, it's really insulting that people love their movies, watch their movies, and yet expect these guys to have to go and do day jobs in between and do their movies at night. It's like, you're not going to get a great product in future if you keep forcing people to do that.
Now, mate, with Gabriel, to some extent, you wanted that film to change what people thought about what an Australian film should be and could be. Yep. That also seems to apply with Infini.
Yeah, I think it's because it's everyone sort of, there's that, it's the whole thing, there's a whole argument about, Australian audiences should get behind Australian films more. And it's like, but it's still our job as filmmakers to make films they want to see. As an audience member myself, I don't watch a lot of Australian cinema because it's not made for me. It doesn't appeal to my demographic. And I make the type of films I want to watch. And Gabriel proved that worldwide when it became such a big hit because people wanted to see that type of movie. And here, probably the worst country for Gabriel was Australia because there was that cultural, why are you doing those accents? Why does it look this way? And then the rest of the world didn't really care about that. They just wanted to see an angel war film. And the same with this. I mean, it's kind of when you're doing a science fiction film in the future, which I believe will become quite gentrified, and everyone will touch it's one big sort of melting pot. I feel like there wouldn't be just a bunch of Aussies, off on a space station, and I think it's kind of a homage to the films again I grew up with. I grew up with American style cinema, but the film is 100%. Daniel McPherson in the lead. Everyone knows him from Australian television, and it's an Australian, 100% Australian cast, 100% Australian crew.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to make it for the international crowd as opposed to just home here, because I feel like the audience here are quite fickle, you know. So it's if you just make it for these guys here and you have a hit here, it usually doesn't travel well overseas, or you have a hit overseas, it doesn't really play well at home. So I sort of...
Because you were going to get ribbed about all the American accents in there.
Yeah, and I don't really mind that. Again, it sounds bad, but it's like I said, it's made for the international audience. I don't like. It's funny how like Matrix and Star Wars and all these films come here and shoot their films here, and yet we're not allowed to do that level of film ourselves. I think my play is to try and get to a point where a studio or someone like that says, "Hey, you guys can make your own cinema, but it can be quite big, you know." But at the same point, Australia is a small country. When you travel the world, you kind of see that we're not on the news anywhere. We're not really. So, you know, our films that we make for ourselves are fantastic, but I think when you want a film to play in every territory around the world, you've got to have something that a lot of people want to see. And I think a bunch of Aussies in space kind of doesn't make as much sense as more of an international, neutral kind of crowd.
You are a very commercially minded, genre-oriented filmmaker, and you really are always mindful about having investments returned to the investor. Given that, I'm very keen to know what you think of the Australian film industry at the moment, which seems to be in some sort of turnaround. There seems to be increasing respect for genre filmmaking, for popular filmmaking. What do you think?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that is, we're talking about the golden age of cinema, but I mean, right now it's one of the most exciting times I've ever seen, because the government is doing a great job. The rebate is fantastic. The agencies are very supportive. And the whole thing turned around in the years since Gabriel to now. I found everything here to be really, really supportive towards doing this kind of thing, as long as you've had the merit, or you've shown the blood, sweat and tears to go out there and do it yourself and show that you can make a film, show that people want to see a film you make. And then they get behind you. And I think that's one of the things that filmmakers don't realise, is that no one else in the world gets that kind of government support that we get down here. But at the same point, that shouldn't make us weak. It's not a charity.
Sure.
So I think people need, like Wormwood, they need to go out and get behind it. And yeah, there's so many exciting films that are coming out. You know, Backtrack, and you know, we have Little Death and Wormwood and Kill Me Three Times. These final hours and Predestination. It's really exciting.
I know it's a privately funded film when you got your 40% government rebate, but are you allowed to tell me how much Infini cost?
It was low.
Below $1 million?
It's a tight bar. I'd say it's under $5 million, and it's a very, very tight budget. The scope of it is massive for what we did.
Now, Gabriel, the film, was about purgatory. I'm wondering whether your years in Hollywood after that film was a kind of purgatory. Can you just tell us what your experience after Gabriel in Hollywood was like?
It was pretty insane, because the film got so big so fast. And when I left Australia, I was trying to make my second film here, and nobody was interested in the type of films at that point that I wanted to make. So and they said, you should go to LA. So I still do have one of like the biggest kind of agents you can get for directors. And he put me in all the rooms at all the studios, and very quickly I had the sequel to The Dark Crystal, which was Jim Henson's vision. I just wanted to shoot what Jim wanted to do, and then I was on a film at Universal called Source Code, and it just really quite quickly became quite crazy. But I realised very fast that, like, you come from the system here where you get to do what you want within reason with your team. And then over there, everyone tells you, we want you to do your thing as long as it's exactly what we want with the people we tell you to use. So I kind of fought against that so much that there was a point I realised that it was me. Like, I was always the one that would kill a project, because like Dark Crystal, I walked away from that because they didn't want to do Jim's vision. And I didn't want to do my version. I wanted the world to see what Jim wanted to do. And I wouldn't have it. And that's the thing. I have a very strange sense of integrity with this sort of stuff. And I like sci-fi and I like genre cinema, but I'm actually more interested in character and drama. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the interesting things with Infini, was that I got to really get a lot of that out. You know, in some of the supporting characters, we went pretty full on with those performances. We lived on that set 24/7. No one left that shoot. And for a lot of them, it was quite traumatic by the end of the process. And that type of set and that type of environment, or that integrity to the craft, is what I wanted to do in Hollywood, but wasn't really able to do, because it's more like a human stock exchange over there. I still love Hollywood. I still have a great relationship with them, and I still have projects there, but I kind of want to do it the way I think it should be done, or I don't really have any interest in doing it. I'm not like a career director that just wants to be on set directing stuff. It's more of a I'm more of a storyteller that wants to tell a very specific type of story, as long as people want to listen to it.
What was the one big lesson that you learned from your Hollywood experience?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think it was probably to hope for the best and expect the worst. So I kind of prepare everything for like the worst case scenario, the absolutely worst outcome. And if that is still possible and that is still something I can live with, then it's a good day. And I think Hollywood is full of people that really want the best, but you kind of can't trust anyone. Not in a malicious way. You just can't trust when there's that much hope and that much excitement. The only thing you can trust is something you can control yourself. Otherwise, you're just in the wind, with everyone else.
Mate, final question, and you can just give me a quick yes or no. Had you made Gabriel in the last couple of years, are you confident that given the change in the filmmaking environment now, that your follow-up film probably would have been made here?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, I would. Definitely, actually. Because, we've helped a couple of filmmakers since, get their films going. And yeah, it's it's a very different climate down here. Genre is no longer a dirty word. It's widely supported, so it's fantastic.